Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today I want to give you a step-by-step guide on how we can factually cause the mother of all short squeezes. So stay tuned and let's make some money. But before I dive into the video, be sure to sign up with Moomoo to get this special Thomas James investing promotion. Not only do you get a free stock valued up to $350, not only do you get a second free stock with a guaranteed value of $50, but you also get a third free stock with a guaranteed value of $30 when you sign up using the link down in the description below. And that means that you're guaranteed to get at least $80 worth of free stocks, which is pretty much 2 free shares of AMC just for signing up with Moomoo and depositing. And now I want to dive straight in with the key information. So, firstly I want to start by talking about what direct registering your shares actually is and what does it do. And then secondly, I want to go on to the step-by-step guide. Now, just a quick note, is this the only way to trigger the short squeeze and the mother of all short squeezes? No, but it is a way, it is a catalyst, and this will trigger the mother of all short squeezes if done correctly. The reason why this will cause the mother of all short squeezes and the short squeeze is because if you hold your shares with your trading app or your trading platform or with your broker, the shares are registered in their name. Yes, you can turn share lending off, and that means they can't lend out your shares. But because the shares are registered in their name, they can sell your shares whenever they like, as long as they're sure to buy them back. But if you direct register your shares, those shares are registered in your name and are basically taken out of the float because no one can sell or buy your shares because they're in your name and not in your broker's name. But I'll explain it a bit more in depth. The act of direct registering shares, or DRS, is taking a security and registering that security in your name, which is then held on the books of the transfer agent or the company, as in GameStop or AMC. DRS is way better than having street name registration, which is where the security you buy through Fidelity or TD Ameritrade or Webull is under their name and held on their books. If the float of GameStop or AMC is street name registered, then it allows brokers to trade with one another in X clearing for these securities and produce fails on their books. They have a massive pool of shares to borrow from to give you your shares in your account, and they can continue to reasonably locate shares to reset their fails. Yes, obviously you can disable your share lending, but it's still kind of in that pool because they can just sell it and buy it back. The brokers don't have to purchase a share on the market when you send a buy order. If they can reasonably locate a share due to the float not being locked up, then they can essentially give you an IOU. This is what happened to CMKM Diamonds and that Dr. T has been talking about for a while. Brokers wouldn't even buy the damn shares, but investors were credited with shares on their accounts. Bam! One way that phantom shares are introduced. It allows shorters to continue to borrow from a massive pool of float and short the stock because they can reasonably locate those shares, even if there is a plethora of phantom shares in existence. To the DTCC and the broker-dealers, the shares are there and available. As long as a massive portion of the float stays street name registered, the float isn't locked up, and they can continue to stall the game, dragging the price. DRS is a solution to the poop they're performing to suppress the stock and continue to produce phantom shares. When the security is registered in your name on the books of the transfer agent or on the books of GameStop or AMC, it chunks down the remaining float because it effectively removes your shares from the overall float. Think of institutions registering millions of shares of ownership and reducing the float. By DRSing shares, shareholders effectively do this and officially reduce the float. And that basically means, obviously, when you go onto Fintel and you see that 150 million shares are held by institutions, you just assume the float, less those institutional shares, is what's left for you to buy. And therefore, if you take the float, take off the institutional shares, and then take off everything that's been direct registered, that is officially what is left. And therefore, the more we can get direct registered, the less those hedgies have to play with. With less float, the broker-dealers, shorters and market makers have less power. They'll be more constrained when it comes to reasonably locating shares, and as the float gets locked up towards 0 shares in float, everything goes to poop for them. The brokers can no longer reasonably locate shares for you when you place an order. All shares have to be purchased and the buy button effectively shuts off, assuming other retail isn't selling to you. The problem of phantom shares creation or phantom share creation shuts down. Shorters also cannot locate shares to borrow to short. This method of phantom share creation shuts down as well. Broker-dealers and others cannot locate shares to reset the fail-to-delivers in X clearing, and therefore fail-to-delivers can skyrocket, finally triggering regulation SHO closeout obligations. basically meaning if there's no shares for the failed to delivers to be reset, those failed to delivers actually have to be covered instead of just can kicked down the line. But so long as the majority of the float remains street name registered rather than direct registered, they can continue producing phantom shares and resetting fails, essentially nullifying all buying pressure from retail. The good news is that direct registering of shares is a process that is proved through transfer agents for companies, so it's possible for retail to register the shares in their name and chunk down the float. In fact, that is the only way to direct register shares. It must be from the designated transfer agent of the company. And who is the designated transfer agent for GameStop? It's Computershare, and that's directly from an SEC filing for GameStop. Now obviously you might be asking, who's the transfer agent for AMC? Well, I'm obviously on the AMC Investor Relations website, and if you scroll down it says that Computershare Trust Company is the registrar and transfer agent for AMC Entertainment Holdings. Computershare is available to resolve problems related to unpaid dividends, lost, destroyed or stolen certificates, as well as to facilitate name and address changes, as in to change the registered name on those shares into your name instead of your trading platform's name. Down at the bottom of the AMC website they have the contact information for Computershare and also for John Merriweather, the Vice President of Investor Relations. If you're a bit confused with Computershare or don't fully trust them, feel free to send an email to John Merriweather and I'm sure he can give you some additional confidence. Computershare also provides transfer agent services for many companies of all sizes, like Microsoft, Apple and Amazon. Therefore, Computershare is a real and trustworthy company, especially if it's used by Microsoft, Apple and Amazon. So really, I do not see how Computershare is anything to worry about. It is the golden platter, placed right in front of you. Direct registering of shares pulls the float and locks it up because it's no longer registered as street name under the broker dealers. And as long as the majority of the float remains street name registered, they can continue can kicking. They can continue selling retail more phantom shares, nullifying buying pressure, and resetting fails via X clearing. And therefore, if you do direct register your shares, broker dealers and shorters and market makers lose their price suppression power and phantom share creation power as they have less float to work with. And obviously the moment that more than the entire float is registered with DRS, poop hits the fan, as Dr. T says, because you immediately have evidence of phantom shares or synthetic shares. The post then goes on to give an example of shareholders that DRS their stock in the instance of CMKM Diamonds, and it's written about in Dr. T's book. But obviously I don't really want to go too in depth with that. I will obviously leave the link to that post down in the description below, and I'll also leave the link to this step-by-step guide down in the description below as well. Step 1 is to call that following number, or even call the number on the AMC Investor Relations website. You then ask to initiate a direct registration of share transfer to Computershare. Step 2, you might need to provide them with the following details, like your account number with Fidelity. Obviously this example is specifically for Fidelity, but they also have a guide for TD Ameritrade, and Ally Invest, Chase Bank or JP Morgan, and many other platforms as well here. You might also need your date of birth, your social security number and current address, and also how many shares you want to transfer and the method of transfer. You then obviously might need the stock ticker, which is obviously going to be AMC or GameStop, and also the CUSIP number, that's the number for GameStop, and it's a fairly easy Google search for AMC. And then step number 3 is, well, you're done. It is literally that easy, just a 3-step guide. Most of the other platforms here also have a 3-step guide as well, although for some platforms like E-Trade, it is a 5-step guide, but it is not very complex. Now you might say, how do we know it's going to work? And how do we know that it's trustworthy? All you've done so far is listen to a random person making a video and putting it on the internet about it. So who else has spoken about direct registering shares? Well, Interactive Brokers CEO and Chairman Thomas Petterfy stated on Bloomberg how Longs would have initiated a short squeeze if they had known they had to right to ask to direct register their shares.
I was scared of a domino bankruptcy. I mean, I tell you, the rules require the long brokers to go into the market and buy the shares at whatever price. So that drove the shares up to $480, and then suddenly, I guess, it didn't go further, but it could have gone further. So if the shorts had known, if the longs had known that they have the right to ask for their shares,
yeah,
and they really wanted a short squeeze, that's what they would have done.
So basically what Thomas Petterfy is saying there is that obviously these platforms and these brokers had to go into the market and buy these shares, and that's what pushed the GameStop price up to over $400 a share. But all of a sudden, then they stopped going in and buying these shares. But he then says if he knew that we had the right to ask for those shares and demand those shares to be bought, or direct registered those shares because then they are bought and in our name, then it would have triggered the short squeeze. Now, I do want to be completely transparent and talk about the advantages of direct registering your shares and also the disadvantages. One of the advantages is that it also protects you if your stockbroker goes bankrupt, because your claim is with the company and you own part of it, not the intermediary. Because the shares are registered in your name, they're your shares. Whereas obviously if your shares are registered in the name of your stockbroker, if they go bankrupt, you're not necessarily guaranteed to get all of that money back. And obviously when you hold stock in a straight name, your broker can lend your shares to short sellers who can drive down the stock price by selling short the stock. Now you might have share lending turned off, but they could still sell your shares, which obviously drives selling pressure, and buy them back later. Now obviously one of the biggest disadvantages of using DRS is that you can't sell your stock immediately. You have to submit instructions directly to the transfer agent, who then pulls your sell orders with other sellers and executes those trades on a predetermined schedule, maybe once a day for example. And therefore it does make it impossible to sell shares in the midst of a panic at any 1 second interval, because they maybe only execute trades once per day. Although could potentially take a few business days to achieve, perhaps longer. Although there is a comment from somebody that has already direct registered their shares, and he said that Computershare have an investor center when you can buy and sell shares, not only of the best company we love, but many other companies as well, including setting limit sales, etc. So you could direct register your shares and then just set a limit sell, and then at least you know you're fairly certain to get the price you want. Now on top of this, if you also check out rule DTCC 003/2003 and check out the comments, you can see a lot of people opposing this rule change, which was the direct registering of shares. However, there was also a number of comments that supported this rule change, and one of those is as follows. In order to resolve naked shorts, issuers have had to resort to small dividends, name changes, requests to stockholders to order shares out of DTC, or actually exiting DTC to get any results. The latter almost immediately requires brokers to cover their naked shorts, and these naked shorts are evident to DTC at all times. What the DTC is trying to do is perpetuate what it is now doing, without any potential liability for helping the conspiracy in naked shorts that has damaged so many small companies and their shareholders. Once somebody exits DTC, you can be sure the naked shorts have to be covered to complete that. This is what the DTC is upset about, not preventing them. And somebody else commented saying, we have no quarrel with brokers who believe a stock is overvalued and engaged in covered short selling. Our objections relate solely to the ability of NSCC members to sell unlimited quantities of non-existent stock into thinly traded markets and receive payment for the counterfeit shares without making good delivery to investors who purchase stock in good faith. Remember that these comments were made on a rule change that was enacted in 2003, so this practice has been going on for a long time, but as this comment here shows, there is a way around it if you direct register your shares and effectively pull those shares out of the float and out of the DTC. Guys, be sure to let me know down in the comments below what you think about direct registering your shares. Is it something you're going to do? Because effectively direct registering those shares takes it out of the float and locks those shares away in your name. And also, if you haven't already, be sure to sign up with Moomoo to get that special Thomas James investing promotion to not only get 1 free stock, not 2 free stocks, but 3 free stocks. And as always guys, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out some of my others. Alternatively, subscribe to the channel and ding that notification bell, because that way you'll be alerted when I upload a new video. Cheers.